Nintendo hasn't done anything for Zelda's 40th anniversary really, so I celebrated a little bit myself. And I didn't even play the original version. Unknowingly, I played possibly the worst way to experience it, but more on that in a little bit. The Legend of Zelda is one of the most iconic video games ever made. It may not be my personal favorite in the series, but it is where everything started, and somehow it still manages to be fun almost 40 years later. When it released in 1986, it didn't come with many answers other than what was in the instruction book, and after you popped in that shiny gold cartridge, it was up to you to figure things out. Unless of course you bought the player's guide, which I didn't, or called the Nintendo tip line, which I didn't, mostly because my parents probably would have grounded me for running up the phone bill.
You're going to have a choice when you're going left, take the bottom trail.
After walking into the first cave and finding out that it's not safe to go alone, and the game pretty much says, "Alright pal, the fate of Hyrule is your problem now." In fact, it's one of 3 games that I remember ever playing with my dad when I was a young kid, and I think he was even the first of us to beat Ganon, which at the time was devastating to my ego. In celebration of the Legend of Zelda's 40th anniversary, I decided that I wanted to sneak in a few Zelda games while I'm working on other reviews that will be much more complicated than this one is. But the catch is this time I'm doing it on the 2004 Classic Series NES version from the Game Boy Advance days to see if there's any difference from the NES version. After I named my character a totally appropriate name, I sent Link, into the first cave to grab the sword and hauled ass to level 1 to get started. In just this first couple of minutes, I noticed something different. The game audio is slightly different on the Game Boy Advance version. I never owned a Game Boy Advance as a kid, so its audio quality still surprises me today, and not in a good way. Somehow the audio on this port manages to sound worse than the NES version, despite being released 18 years later. That's honestly impressive, but in a kind of depressing way. When I reviewed Breath of Fire on GBA recently, which I would encourage you all to check out, I blamed Capcom, but now I'm starting to think the Game Boy Advance itself might just sound like someone recorded the music through a tin can. Like Breath of Fire, everything sounds compressed and metallic, even when emulating an NES game. I got used to it eventually, but I'm starting to realize that playing Game Boy Advance ports of games from other systems is a bad idea. The snare noise from going into the first cave sounds like static, and this is true for many of the other sounds in the game, like throwing the boomerang. Anyway, I can report that the game is pretty much identical otherwise. The only thing I could find is that some of the written dialogue had been changed a bit to correct a misspelling or a translation blip. At first, I was having trouble getting into the sword rhythm, that specific timing where you have to swing the sword just a split second before you need to because of the delay. Sometime around level 2, I was back on track though. I was shocked to remember where every heart container was and where most of the free rupees were from bombing walls and burning bushes. I quickly rounded up several hearts and 250 rupees to buy the blue ring. Levels 3 and 4 were a breeze, but by the time I got to level 5, I had made a mistake somewhere regarding keys. For whatever reason, I was 1 key short for level 5 and ended up just going to the graveyard, getting the magical sword, and finishing level 6. At that point, I went to level 7 to get a key, but then went back to level 5 to finish it out, before again heading back to level 7. Long story short, I ended up having to buy a key for 80 rupees at the same place as the ring, and also picked up the meat while I was there since I needed it anyway. Oddly enough, the same thing happened in Death Mountain because I had totally forgotten to get the master key from level 8, so I ended up having to backtrack there as well for that. Oh no! And the biggest surprise was in level 8. When in the rooms full of whiz robes, I realized I never got the upgraded shield, but ever resilient in my little red tunic, I decided to push forward instead of leaving again to upgrade that, and ended up finishing the game as normal. Now I guess back in 2004, this game might have been cool to have, but at that point I think most NES babies were probably playing GameCube or PS2, and this port kind of blends into obscurity for me. It's not a bad port, it's faithful to the original, it just has some annoyances that are hardware related, not game related. How can you not have a special place in your heart for an enemy called Dig Dogger, for crying out loud? Or the fact that Nintendo wanted you to either randomly buy a piece of sketch-looking meat for 60 rupees without any idea what to do with it, or figure out that a random NPC that says grumble grumble can only be bypassed by teabagging it with said meat. It's kind of like the medieval fantasy equivalent of bribing someone with a cheeseburger. I guess my true love for the game are the times and memories from that period, playing it with my dad or trying to get through the infinite forest without having any resources that tell me how to do it other than trial and error. Or even the time I first encountered a Patra in the final level and I thought I had to somehow breach its spinning defense instead of realizing you could just destroy the smaller orbiting enemies one by one. Even with just the blue ring, those things hit like a truck. With modern players that were born in the internet days, I think the reason the game still is loved by all generations is because of the availability of information. My generation only had one option: bomb every wall, burn every bush, and try absolutely everything until something worked. These days, it's interesting to see it still being played for the first time and enjoyed on YouTube, but I'm not sure if that would be the case without the availability of information. Either way, this game laid the foundation for one of the most incredible and cherished video game franchises of all time, and I'm very thankful for that. My personal favorite is a toss-up between A Link to the Past and Breath of the Wild, but I love them all. I'd give the original NES version about a 7.5 out of 10, so this slightly inferior GBA port lands at about a 7.2 for me. I am confident that I will never play this version again though, but I'm also confident this isn't my last rodeo with the original game. Thank you for spending your time watching my content in this quick review of a classic while I work on other, more complex reviews like Crimson Desert. Happy 40th Zelda anniversary to all of you, and thank you to Shigeru Miyamoto for creating this and every other game after it. Please leave me your experiences with Zelda in the comments below, drop me a like, and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. It's free, and it helps me out a ton as I try to grow this channel. I'll see you in the next one.